First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
And hello, everyone. Welcome back to Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. As always, appreciate you joining us. We cover a wide range of topics on here, so thanks for being a part of the conversations that we get to have. Right now, we're discussing something that probably a lot of you saw yesterday. We're of course, reporting on it, and I'm talking about a demonstration that was at PDX with flight attendants. And this has to do with negotiations, contract negotiations going on right now with Alaska Airlines between the flight attendant union. And we're going to discuss this a little bit more. Joining us, we have AFA Council 39 LEC President Steve Mahler joining us to talk about that demonstration and where you're at in the negotiations. And Steve, thanks for joining us. I know that we spoke a few months ago, I think before the new year, just about some of the things that were going on in the demonstration you had back then. Obviously, it seems like a contract has not been reached between that time and now, and so I thank you for joining us again to have an update on this. So can you talk about yesterday and what it was you were trying to accomplish and what the demonstration really was for?
Thanks, Greg, for having me again. I appreciate it. We were back out at PDX yesterday. This was our fourth informational picket at the airport since the summer, the July month when we started our pickets. This one was a little bit different in that we joined a coalition of multiple airlines. As you've probably seen, we had over 5,000 flight attendants stretching from Guam in the Pacific all the way across North America over to the United Kingdom, over 30 airports. This was a joint effort with 4 of the top 5 airlines in the United States in a mature stage of negotiations, those airlines being American, United, Southwest, and of course us at Alaska. But we also had great support yesterday from our union siblings at coalition carriers, Frontier Airlines, Horizon Air, Air Wisconsin, a number of other airlines that, while they may not be in the same stage of negotiations as we are, they are also dealing with some issues with their management. So it was broad-based support. We had flight attendants from Horizon Air, Delta Airlines activists who were working on unionizing, Frontier Airlines, and of course then the 4 of us that are in negotiations out at PDX. So it was a great show of support. We had over 150 participants at PDX on a cold mid-morning day yesterday, and it was a great turnout. It's again bringing attention to where we are in our negotiations and making sure that the public is aware of where we are with Alaska management and still not able to achieve an agreement.
And to that extent, too, just to clarify for everyone, this wasn't a strike yesterday. This was a demonstration. However, the union did vote to authorize a strike. And I want to get into the process of how the negotiations are going, but can you explain what that is for the public, just to understand what an authorization to strike means?
Absolutely. We started a strike authorization vote. What that does is it goes out to all of our members, and it is the next step in escalating the pressure, and it goes to all members in good standing. They have a chance to vote either that they're for authorizing a strike or they're against. It came out with a very, very strong participation, greater than 93% participation, meaning 93% of our members who are eligible to vote did in fact cast a ballot. And out of that, 99.4% voted in favor of authorizing a strike. So it's really management's actions that have brought us to this place, right? We have not had to take this step since 1993 with AFA's historic chaos strike, which was an Alaska Airlines action. And it shows that flight attendants are committed and ready to go to that step should we need to in the future.
So it's not officially saying this is going to happen, but it means that, as you just explained there, so it's authorized now by the union. That is a tool, I guess, if you will, in your toolkit. Now, I want to just clarify a little bit more too. You mentioned the chaos strike. Can you explain what that is? Because I know that has a lot of meaning. And can you explain what a chaos strike is?
Yes, so chaos is an acronym for create havoc around our system. The whole idea of it is that organized labor found that sometimes general strikes weren't necessarily as successful as they have been in the past. So with a chaos strike, or the theory is we're going to keep management on their toes. We're not going to let them know what we're going to do. So should we get to that point, we might strike an entire airport and people don't show up to work that day, or we could choose specific targeted flights, routes. We could target flights that are at an outstation so that the flight returning back to the hub may not operate. We have lots of options in that, right? And the whole idea is to keep management on their toes, second guessing what we're going to do, not fully knowing what we're going to do, instead of a general strike, which I think is probably a little easier to prepare for.
Gotcha. And this, again, is something that could go into effect. And so talking about that, I guess, before we get to that side of it, can you tell us where you're at in the negotiations, and are you in contact with Alaska Air, the parent company, now?
We are now in mediated negotiations, meaning, and by the way, just for the record, both Alaska Management and AFA jointly asked for mediation. So you put that request into the National Mediation Board, they assign a mediator. We have a mediator assigned now. I think that may be a little bit different from where we were the last time that we spoke. And a mediator means that someone appointed by the National Mediation Board comes in, they set the schedule. They are there to try to facilitate dialogue between the union and management when things kind of stall out, which they have. So we've had one meeting with the mediator, and now we will work with our own negotiating committee internally to identify how we want to proceed in the next mediated session, which we don't have another mediated session until April because our mediator was not available next month. So things unfortunately kind of slow down a little bit when you have a mediator because they need to be there and they sort of direct the schedule. So we've moved into that phase now of negotiations.
So as of now, in theory, nothing will change between now and April when that next mediation session does happen. Is that correct?
Nothing will change in terms of the operation. We still continue to operate under the agreement that's in place that we're trying to negotiate on, obviously. However, our negotiating committee still works internally within AFA to identify our strategy and our priorities for the next mediated session.
Gotcha. And so when that mediated session does happen in April, I mean, and this is just to understand, how the process works. In theory, an agreement could be reached at that point, or in theory as well, an agreement may not be reached. And then would that then elicit another mediation session past that one?
Yes, as long as we don't have an agreement, we would continue within mediated negotiation. So obviously we are very hopeful that with the mediator in the room, we can reach an agreement. I'd love it if it happened in the next mediated session. And then we would be able to move forward with an agreement in principle and then send out hopefully a tentative agreement to the membership to vote on, but we're not there yet.
Is there a certain amount of time or a certain amount of negotiations that you have in mind for when you would want to go on strike, or is that something that you can't reveal? I'm just curious how that works.
Well, but we're a little ahead of that at this point. We want to see how things progress in mediation, right? So if we get to a point where we just feel like, look, we're not getting anywhere, then we would ask the National Mediation Board to declare an impasse, right? So we would say we are simply not going to get there, and management feels the same way, or maybe they don't, but we feel we're not going to get there. We would like to be released from negotiations to have an impasse declared. That starts the clock on a 30-day cooling off period, after which we would be hopefully released into self-help, which would be where we would employ our chaos action or other workplace actions. So, but we're not there yet. That would be how it would work if we got to the point where we wanted to be able to employ our chaos.
Okay. Well, I think that definitely explains it out a little more too, as far as that is. And anything else that you want to share just about the negotiation process, or you think that people should be aware of? It sounds, like this is April will be the next time to go through that process. Do you anticipate there to be any more demonstrations between now and then?
We don't have anything scheduled now. That doesn't mean we might decide to do something to support our negotiating committee and kind of increase that pressure either next month, even though we don't have scheduled negotiations, or something in April around the time that we will be back into negotiations with the mediator. So nothing scheduled right now. That could change at any time. We've got lots of different tools in our toolkit. We've done some leafleting where we have solicited support from our passengers directly. And we could do something like that again, or other activities. So it's kind of an open book as far as what we can do.
All right, well, Steve, thank you very much for joining me, to give an update on this process. Obviously, whatever happens with this negotiation, where everyone's involved in some way, shape, or form, because flight's so important. And I thank you for joining me, to share your side of it and share where we're at and just update everyone on the process of how this works. So it's been very valuable. So I really appreciate you joining me here today.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. I'll just add, what we have said time and time again is anytime there's some kind of a medical emergency on board, or we are de-escalating conflict, fighting fires on board, or something like what happened with Alaska Flight 1282 last month, everyone recognizes just how important our work is, including our passengers. So the lives on our plane are directly affected by flight attendants, and there is no substitute for a well-trained and qualified flight attendant. We know the flying public is behind our contract demands. Management needs to catch up.
Well, Steve, thank you very much. I appreciate you being here, and maybe we can catch up here in a couple of months once that other session begins.
Happy to do it. Thanks again to talk to you.
Thanks, Steve. And thank you to everybody, too, for joining us here for Fox 12 Now. So I will just let you know, in all fairness, I did reach out to Alaska Air as well, Alaska Air Management, to see if they also wanted to do an interview. They declined an interview. They did release a statement that in short says, we agree with our flight attendants that we need a new contract, which is why we've been working hard to get an agreement. We remain optimistic in the negotiations process. That's in part of what their statement was. So thank you, everybody, for joining us, too. I do appreciate you being here for Fox 12 Now. If you are familiar with this show, we cover a lot of different segments. We talk to a lot of different people. And we really try to cover things that you're interested in and that you want to know more about. So please feel free to send me an email, fox12now@kptv.com, if you have a subject matter that you'd like to hear more about or that you'd like to see covered on the show. And as always, between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m., we do cover breaking news. And today, if you're watching this right now live, there was a shooting in Kansas City at the Super Bowl parade for the Kansas City Chiefs for that celebration. And we understand there is going to be another update coming around 3 p.m. Pacific time. So stay tuned. We're going to sign off for now, but we'll be back if that does occur. And we'll certainly be bringing that to you as well on whatever platform you're watching on. That's where we'll be. So thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.